Santa is busy with his heavy pack. He trusts his drivers and never looks back. Oh, the old lady, I hope.
Mind and body here at fucking Christmas Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause for Matthew K. Johnson!
We celebrate Christmas in the dead of winter for a reason. In the olden days, people starved and died in the winter. We needed a celebration to bring everyone together because together was the only way that we could survive the cold. That feels ingrained, that need to be around other people at this time of year. I felt it stronger the longer that I've lived in New York. When I first got here, I took this job that required me to work all the way up to Christmas and for the week after, so I never had time to travel to see family. Most of my friends would leave town for the holidays, so for many years I spent Christmas alone, eating Chinese food, going to the movies, wandering the streets regarding the disheveled, lonely, muttering New Yorkers wandering with me as portents of my future. Maybe that's why I agreed to have Scott stay with me. Scott was this English-Canadian from Quebec whom I'd met when I was visiting New Orleans. We were standing next to each other on this wrought iron balcony at this bar overlooking Bourbon Street. He started talking to me, and then he reached over and he rubbed my chest and my gut. The heat of the night sticking my shirt to my skin and leaving a trail where he touched me. Back in my hotel room, he continued to show a preference for my gut, which was much bigger then than it is now. He straddled me and traced its dimensions with his dick. It was fun. He was energetic and cute, short and hairy and built like a bulldog, exactly my type. You know, we hooked up a bunch more times before I left New Orleans. He told me that it was his dream to visit New York. I said he could stay with me anytime he wanted. That vacation rejuvenated me, and afterwards, when I got back to the city, I started working out again, and I eventually lost 30 pounds in 9 months. I felt great. I didn't hear much from Scott until November, when he emailed me to tell me that he was coming to New York and he wanted to stay with me. Now, when I invited him, I expected that he would come for a weekend. So I was shocked when he told me that he had planned to stay for 11 days over Christmas and New Year's. I was about to tell him, no, I can't host you for that long, but then I remembered all those Christmases I'd spent alone, and I reconsidered. I thought that maybe someone to keep me warm and sane over the holiday was exactly what I needed to make this year different from all the others. When I met him at the bus station, he did a double take. "You've lost weight," he said. "Oh, yeah, I guess I have." Cool. As we took the subway back to my apartment, he told me all about his long bus ride, how excited he was to be in New York, how every moment he was there, he was asking himself why he was still languishing as this hotel concierge in Montreal instead of moving down to the city, as was his dream. As he was talking, I realized that he had this annoying habit that I hadn't noticed before of francifying place names that didn't require it. My subway stop, Montrose, became Montrose. Bleecker became Bleecker. He also made references to the Queensboro Bridge, the Flatiron, and my personal favorite, Grand Central. When I would politely correct him, he gave me this withering look like I should be thanking him for demonstrating the proper pronunciations. It started to give me second thoughts, which of course went out the window the moment we got back to my apartment and just went at each other. I mean, he arrived on a Friday, and that first weekend was heaven. We spent all day in bed, tangled up in each other, and then we'd explore the city arm in arm at twilight. Sure, he was a bit pretentious, and he seemed intent on making every tourist mistake imaginable, like putting his feet on the subway seat, standing on the wrong side of the escalator, telling my friends who lived in Queens that he couldn't imagine living in the suburbs like they did. But as the city emptied itself in anticipation for the holiday, I saw those disheveled wanderers begin to emerge, and I, for once, was not one of them. On Sunday night, as we lay in bed, he looked up at me, those bright brown eyes, wide and searching, and I thought, this was an excellent idea. That's when he said it to me. I don't think I like your body anymore. What? Yeah, since you lost the weight, it just doesn't do it for me anymore. I sat up and pulled the covers up to my neck, shielding my body from his gaze. I didn't know how to respond. He apologized. He said he was just being honest, but before I could say anything, he rolled over and he fell asleep. Next morning, I got up before he did and went to work, and when I got home, he wasn't there. He didn't come home until 3 a.m. I asked him where he'd been, and he told me that he'd been at the Statue of Liberté. And then he told me about how he'd gone to this bar and met this couple and spent all night fucking them in their Chelsea apartment. He presented it as if I should be happy for him. This was the self-actualization he'd come to New York to find, just like millions of dreamers before him. He was so earnest about it that I started to feel really stupid. Stupid for believing that he had come to New York to sleep with me, be with me, make me feel something other than loneliness at Christmas time. He went out most nights after that. He'd come in late, slip into bed, smelling of cigarette smoke and lube. He never invited me along, but I got the sense it would be really awkward if I went. We started to resemble this hateful married couple on the eve of a divorce, all crossed arms and never mind. Finally, on Christmas Eve, he said to me, "Look, I know you're down about something, but tonight let's do what you want to do." So I thought about it and I said, "Tonight I want to rent a movie. I want to go and find the nicest bottle of Irish whiskey that we can and get drunk on my couch in front of the TV." He said, "That sounds like a great idea." So we went out, we got the bottle, and we rented the station agent because Scott thought that a movie about a little person would be funny. So we went home, we made drinks, I put on the movie. He was texting someone on his phone. We got about 5 minutes into the movie before he stood up and he put on his jacket. And I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to go meet a friend. I'll be right back." And then he left. He left me alone on Christmas Eve, getting drunk, watching a movie about 3 lonely strangers becoming the best of friends until it made me sick and I had to turn it off. I was going to tell him how I felt. I know I'm kind of a wimp, but I was going to appeal to that warm, friendly guy that I'd met on Bourbon Street, and hope to salvage some of this lackluster holiday. It got late. I went to bed. A little while later, I heard him come through the door, and I prepared myself for when he was going to come in the bedroom, and I would give him a piece of my mind. But he didn't come into the bedroom right away. I heard him talking to himself in the living room, and I thought, oh, he must be drunk. But then I heard another voice, a deeper voice, answer him, and I realized he wasn't alone. I went out into the living room and I saw him. He was on my couch, straddling this large man that I'd never seen before. When Scott saw me, he smiled, and he smiled as if he wanted me to be proud of his conquest. His conquest was in his mid-40s with a big stupid grin and a big belly, bigger even than mine had been at my heaviest. And I realized that this stranger was everything that I couldn't be for Scott. This was his big apple, and he was parading him in front of me. I felt it rise up in me, this wave of nausea and anger, and it just came out as the words, "Get out." He looked at me confused, and I said it again, "Get out, you rude, inconsiderate, fake French tourist." He protested. He tried to be nice, but I just kept saying it, get out, like an exorcist driving a demon from a body. He gathered all of his things, he put his arm around his Big Apple, and he went to the door. But then he turned around and he looked at me, and he had those big brown eyes, and he looked like the same guy that I'd met in the bar. And I thought, he's going to apologize to me. But then he said something to me. I didn't really understand what it was. It sort of mumbled. He said, like, "Journalist." And I was like, "What?" And he said it again, and I was like, "I don't understand what you're saying." And he said, "It's French for Merry Christmas." All right, get the fuck out of my apartment. And I slammed the door in his face. And I've had a lot of lonely Christmases since then. I've done the Chinese food, the movies, the disheveled wandering. And I still feel that ingrained desire to be around other people at this time of year. But then I remember that some people are fucking terrible. And I think, you know what? I'm fine on my own. Thank you.
Story, ladies and gentlemen. Full disclosure, we've worked through it, but full disclosure, I was Big Apple in that story. It's how Matthew K. Johnson and I met.
And Santa's busy with his heavy pack. He trusts his drivers and never looks back. Holy old lady, I roam. Holy old lady.